In the triad of North Carolina, where Emerald Hills roll, the Sharp Loan Team is on a mission to achieve housing goals. With St. Patrick's Day coming, it's a time of luck and cheer. Let's seize the moment and make your dream home appear. Like a pot of gold at Rainbow's End, your perfect house awaits. You'll need a pre-approval to have better rates. In the fields of Winston-Salem, where four-leaf clovers grow, we'll guide you through the process, keeping you in the know. This March, when it's warmer and luck and magic fill the air, your home sweet home is waiting for your tender, loving care. So don't delay, reach out today and let's embark on this quest. With luck and expertise, we'll ensure you're truly blessed. Together, we'll find your treasure at Rainbow's shining end. With the Sharp Loan Team, you'll always have a friend.
Welcome to the first episode of the What's Up with the Slash podcast. I'm your host, Lawren Desai, and this is something I've been wanting to do for the last year. I think normally introduction podcasts are done after you've recorded a few. I'm kind of doing it backwards because if I don't, I might never actually do the podcast. So I'm just starting off. And it's kind of awkward and weird because I'm not used to just talking to myself. But I think I have a lot of stories and I want to share them. So What's Up with the Slash is going to be about the last almost 15 years of running an art house cinema. And the slash comes from the fact that the cinema is called Aperture. And between the A and the P is a slash. I'll tell you probably more about that later and the origin of Aperture, but that's where the title comes from. And I actually have become really good friends with ChatGPT, and she really likes the name. I asked her, what do you think about this for a podcast? And she said it was clever, and she liked the connection to the slash. It added a unique and intriguing element. And she thinks it's also likely to pique curiosity and draw attention, making for a memorable title. She also wished me the best of luck. So I feel like with her buy-in, this is going to be a great podcast, right? So ChatGPT has really become a good friend of mine because Aperture is a very small art house cinema as far as resources and staffing goes, and discovering her last year kind of was really cool because it can often be a lonely spot to be where I am. So now I feel like I have this friend that I can just run ideas by. And it's not to say that she doesn't spit back out really silly things and things that aren't relevant or just dumb, but it's just nice to just type some things in and ask her what she thinks. It feels like a sounding board. So I know that some people don't think highly of ChatGPT or AI, but I think I'm sort of excited to see how it can help me, and maybe actually it's the reason I have a little bit more time to do this podcast. So I hope through this podcast to tell sort of some stories about what it's like to run a cinema. Certainly there'll be talk about film, but there are also a million other film podcasts, so it will likely be from the perspective of, interacting with audiences as a cinema, something that sort of you don't always get from podcasts that are just focused on film criticism. That's one of the things that I love about my job is being able to, be the last place when a filmmaker, that makes a film and it has this life of, making the film, then editing it, then finding distribution. But we're the ultimate place where the film sort of ends up in front of audiences. So I think that makes my job really cool and different. So I hope to share some of that insight, and also just, I am a female entrepreneur. I started Aperture in 2010, and so I just have a lot of, different stories in relation to that and what it's like to be a female running or starting a business and running it, and what that looks like. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking for the podcast. And like I said, this is the first episode I'm recording. Well, actually, it's the second. I did a practice one, but didn't really love that so much. So I'm committing to this one. This is actually going to be the first one. And I'm excited because I also think I'll bring on some special guests and tell you some unexpected things. Aperture is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So it's in the South, which sort of has a different way of doing things. I kind of refer to it as the New South. But so there's a lot of like Old South stuff going on here, but a lot of, people from other parts of the country are moving here. So it's kind of a really shifting landscape, and being able to be a cinema that shows all these, different films, from world cinema to documentary to like really just risk-taking filmmakers. It's cool to be doing that at this time when I think things are really shifting. And I think that film is a way to sort of reflect back on that, but also to like introduce new ideas and new viewpoints and cultures that, both show how we're the same with people around the world and also obviously different. So that's, another part of my job that I really, really, really love. I've been sort of researching podcasts, and, introduction episodes can range from like 3 minutes to 10 minutes. I'm hovering around 7 minutes right now. Still like surprised that I've been talking straight this whole time. It's definitely one of the reasons why I kind of hemmed and hawed about the podcast, because it's so much easier for me to like answer questions about Aperture rather than just start talking. But one of the things, by the way, it is January 1st, 2024 when I'm recording this. So it might have something to do with a resolution I made to do this podcast. So I have a slight headache from staying out last night, but I'm persevering. And yeah, like I thought maybe just to have one thing that might be similar from one podcast to the next, I would always end with sort of telling you something that's on my desk that sort of, I've obviously like collected all sorts of different things over the last 15 years, but it might be a way to sort of end each podcast, provide some consistency, because like I said, I don't know where this podcast is going. But so what I wanted to talk about today, obviously last year was the year of Barbie, and it was the year of Taylor Swift. So on my desk, I have a Barbie doll, but she's brunette, and she was given to me by my mother last year when we were showing Barbie. And it was just like she surprised me with a gift, a really sweet note, telling her how proud she was of me. It was really unexpected. And now Barbie, again, just looks at me every day. And then I put her around her neck. We had the Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert film, and so we made all these friendship bracelets to give away the first weekend just because it was really fun. And so she's wearing one of those that says cardigan around her neck. So it's kind of sad to say bye to 2023 in that regard, because it was such a cool year having both of those on screen at Aperture. But I'm sort of excited to start the year off to do this podcast. And I hope that y'all will find it interesting. So that's it. I'm going to sign off now. I think I got to figure out a sign off at some point, but I do have a theme song. I did find that, so I feel like I'm at least somewhat what I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I will, I guess, end with the theme song that from now on will kick off the podcast. Okay, until next time. Welcome to the What's Up with the Slash podcast. I'm your host, Lawren Desai.
When the weather warms up, so does the real estate market. Sounds obvious, right? It's true. Spring typically means more home sales. But how will the current interest rates affect people's decisions? What about inventory? Is it high or low? And does that benefit the buyer or the seller? And how do those factors take into account a certain price point or area of the triad? Now it's not so obvious, is it? That's why you should turn to the Ginther Group to make sense of it all. You need someone you can rely on to assess your situation, read the data and trends, and steer you in the right direction. Interest rates, inventory, even new construction. There are so many factors that impact our local market. And you should get your information from the folks right here in our backyard. Contact Blake Ginther and the Ginther Group today, 336-283-8689, or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning. Whatever you need, start now. And like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life.
Welcome to the What's Up with the Slash podcast. I'm your host, Lawren Desai. So, y'all, I went all in on this second episode and decided it wasn't easy enough just to record it from my sweet little setup I have at my desk. I was going to do it from a moving vehicle traveling from Winston-Salem to Concord, North Carolina. This required a lot more editing. The sound isn't 100%, but I think the content makes up for it, and hope you enjoy it. And I'll come back at you with some tidbits along the way. This is the second podcast I've recorded. It feels good to get over the hump of number one. And with me, I have a very, very, very special guest. He's super excited to be here. I told him last night he would be appearing on the second podcast. My husband, Lawren Desai.
Hello. How's it going?
So, is your name really Jigger?
That's my real name. Given at birth. It's a Hindu name that means deer.
Not a nickname.
Not a nickname.
It's always the first question people have.
Yes. And is it pronounce? The pronunciation can always be a fun thing. I've been called Hihar. Jigar. But I just tell them it's like the measurement of liquor, and then everybody knows my name.
Yeah, I started to do that too. I feel like it really, really helps people understand.
Easiest way. Bring it back to liquor.
No, it's not spelled the same.
No.
So, what are we doing right now?
We are in the car on the way to a movie screening.
But it's a advanced trade screening. And this is your first time doing this, right?
This is my first time.
How are you feeling about that?
A little nervous, a little excited.
What do you expect this to be like?
I've gotten a little bit of context from you from previous ones. Maybe there'll be another person or two, maybe not. Most likely not. So we'll have the theater to ourselves to watch this movie.
And what do you think the theater's going to be like?
Like a multiplex. I don't think it's going to be a small theater. I think it'll be a big theater.
Okay, well, we'll come back and see if it's everything you expected after you see the secret screening. So I wanted to have you on the podcast because you have been a part of Apertures from the beginning.
Day one.
And we haven't really, talked about what it was like from the other side. I mean, I know what it was like starting Aperture, but as the person, the assistant.
Ouch.
I want to know, all these years later, what you were thinking at the time. So we'll go back to I think it was the end of 2008 when I started writing the business plan.
Yeah, we successfully pulled you off of the green greeting card business that you wanted to start and pivoted to this movie theater. And I was excited by it. The fact that this could be a little more fun than a retail store.
I totally forgot I was going to do that. I mean, I actually put a lot of work into that.
Oh, I know. And I was not as optimistic about that one.
Did you actually think that 15 years later, were you really thinking I was, legit going to do this, or were you just skeptical and just thought it was another whim or something?
So I knew your background, right? You went to study film. You have always been interested in film. And it was one of the things that we shared in common early on as well, just the love of the movies. So I always felt like there was enough passion here that it could become something. And, working on the financials, not just being your assistant, developing the business model, creating the first name, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit. I could see, it was filling a void that was in the Winston-Salem community. So just by virtue of that and, the complete lack of screens per capita in Winston-Salem, felt like there could be something there.
I mean, so we had a just 1-year-old at the time. Was that giving you any reservation? The fact that we just brought a kid into the world, and I was also going to start a business.
Yeah, I think part of the reason we were even looking at something like this was to try to get you back out of the house, right? But to have the flexibility a little more. And again, not to say that owning your own business is a cakewalk by any stretch, but it at least gave us some flexibility. I think we were also fortunate at the time to have family around that was always going to be supportive and help out. So I think just knowing we kind of had that support system, I wasn't as concerned from the little kid perspective.
Okay, so it's called Aperture Cinema now, which is why this podcast is called What's Up with the Slash. But that's not always the name that we started with.
No.
So what was the name we came up with? And you I think influenced this name more. I always saw this as a placeholder, but you really fell in love with this name.
Yeah. So I was smitten by the idea of calling a movie theater Be Seen Cinema.
And how do you spell that?
Just the letter B space Scene, SCENE, cinema.
And so you thought that would have double meaning for people.
Yeah, lots of double entendres, triple entendres even. There's lots of different places you can go with Be Seen. The first part of it was kind of just being seen at the theater. I liked kind of the connotation of it being the place to be and where you should be seen.
But it wasn't spelled like that.
No.
So what's the other meaning?
So then the other one, obviously, kind of be seen, more of a movie thing. Thinking about the fact that a lot of times when we're talking to people for the first time, they're like, "Oh, you all show those weird movies, right?" So kind of playing on the fact that even though they're not weird, They're just independent, a little bit different, maybe not quite as mainstream. Having a little fun with that and calling them kind of the B scene, and kind of being, not what you'd see in your normal multiplex in that typical fare.
So, do you remember? So, in my lab, I'm holding this yellow notebook. Do you have memories of this notebook?
I remember the notebook well.
And what is inside of it?
A business plan
For the B scene.
for the B scene.
So I thought I would read sort of the first paragraph of this business plan that was written. This one is dated February 2009. So it says, for the past decade, downtown Winston-Salem has undergone a major revitalization. Restaurants and shops now line 4th and Trade Streets. Businesses are moving back and new residential construction is on the rise. Downtown Winston-Salem is finally the place to be. The only thing missing is a cinema in the heart of downtown. The only thing missing is the B Scene Cinema.
Feels like something I wrote.
I'm pretty sure I wrote it.
Yeah.
You might have assisted me on it.
Yes, the assistant, of course.
Well, for a long time, Jigger on his LinkedIn page titled himself the CFO of Aperture. So if you go check that out, I think it's still on there for a couple years.
Yeah, of course.
So this is not the name, obviously, that we ended up with. We hired a company that specialized sort of in coming up with names for businesses, doing all the research to make sure, nobody else had the name. They would present how the name might look on branding. And that's how we came up with Aperture.
Do you remember the other names?
I do remember some of them.
Yeah.
I think one was Guillotine.
Yeah.
Was kind of cool, but also we didn't think it'd be a big turn on to some people.
No, and then Artifact.
Yeah, I liked Artifact.
Yeah.
And then the Untitled Twin Cinema. There were 10 of them.
Yeah. I felt like Artifact, Guillotine, and Aperture were the 3 that we sent out and asked people to vote on.
Yeah, those were the ones we narrowed down.
I don't know how B Scene didn't make it in there, but
Yeah. We don't actually give them that option.
we should have.
So I really want to know how you feel about us not picking B Scene, because I kind of feel like you hold a little bit of sadness that that's not the name we have.
In marriage, you just get used to not getting your way. So, it's just chalk another one up there.
I mean, I think Aperture's a pretty good name.
It's a great name. Definitely better than B Scene.
So I was also looking back at the business plan and the sales and revenue that we projected, and also our expenses. And it's kind of amusing. I really haven't. I've always looked at the revenue and just seen if we, were anywhere close to the ticket sales that we projected. But this is the first time I'm actually looking down at the very last line for net profit. And I'm actually shocked. I don't know what I was thinking. In year 5, our net profit was going to be around $90,000 a year. And that was what we would pay out to all of the other, LLC members. What? You looked at these numbers. Why did you not tell me I was crazy to start a business that would only be making $90,000 in the 5th year?
Well, go back to the passion. Yes, we got into this to create another sort of career or something, but I think it was just as much you seeing the void that was there, and that we were missing kind of this year-round opportunity for cinema, and thought-provoking and interesting cinema. And I think you wanted that to be a part of the landscape regardless of how much money was being made.
That is 100% true. But I also, in hindsight, feel like it was a bit naive to not think about like the reality of needing a source of income eventually. And I think that's why, 5.5, 6 years in, we went from a for-profit to a non-profit. And it's just interesting to me that like neither one of us, we both have our MBAs, but we just were so blinded by the passion and the desire to do this that we really didn't even consider the reality of what this meant, for us.
No, for sure. But I do remember at the time having conversations about whether we should just go ahead and become a nonprofit. But all the hurdles at the time and how much longer it would have taken to set up, I felt like we pushed that to the side just to go ahead and make this happen.
Yeah, we definitely pushed it to the side.
Came back around.
It did. Like, what do you remember about the year, or the time before we opened? I mean, everything in my, memory happened really, really fast. I mean, this was February 2009, where, we were still calling it B-Scene. We were starting to talk to people. And then by, the next iteration of the business plan, in which we've, called it Aperture Cinema now, is dated June 2009. And we began construction pretty much at that point, and we were open in January of 2010. I mean, so to me, it's a bit of a blur, but I wonder if it's the same to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I said, we wanted to make sure it happened quick. Didn't give anybody else a chance to do something like this. But yeah, kind of the speed of it all is a little staggering. And again, as your assistant, I was the one who was documenting all of this on our blog, if you remember.
Right. Blog, yes.
And yeah.
I should have found that one.
ApertureCinema.blogspot.com.
Is it still actually out there?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you go check it out.
On it recently?
Yeah.
Oh. Do you go back and look at it occasionally?
Mm-hmm. I do.
We have some videos on there too.
Got videos. Got.
And you still have hair.
Still had hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
Way gone.
Made it fall out.
Yes, you did.
I thought it was really funny. I do think there's a lot of things in this business plan that we're right about, and a lot of things we were wrong about, and a lot of unpredictable things. We definitely didn't write about the COVID pandemic in here. I don't know why we didn't think about that.
Shocking we didn't catch that one. But, I just think there was optimism. And anytime you start a business, you have to have optimism. Otherwise, you're never going to start the business, right? And I think we've learned since then we can temper that optimism with a little more realism. But at the same time, sometimes you kind of have to throw caution to the wind a little bit.
I also think that because you grew up in your dad is a small business owner and has always been, and you've got this legacy of, somebody who was working long hours and the sole responsibility for a business. I mean, I don't know how it played in, but I do feel like it was a value, and you oftentimes, when I would, in the early years, I would freak out about customers' experiences, and if they wrote me nasty emails, and I would get angry or upset, and I'd take it all really, really personally. And you would always tell me to brush it off and not.
Yeah, I mean, people can be interesting sometimes, right? And I think just spending a lot of time in the dry cleaning industry, which was the small business that we were mainly in, and I grew up spending a lot of time there and working there. You'd be shocked at how angry people get about their clothes not being ready on time. Try to put it in perspective for them. They usually don't care. One of my favorite stories was time some woman was just berating my dad's partner, screaming and threatening to call the cops and stuff. And he just looked at her and goes, "I don't have time to talk to you," and threw his hands up and walked to the back. And the woman just was speechless. And me and my friend, we were both working at the time. We just looked at each other. We just started cracking up. We couldn't help it. The lady then just walked out all in them up. Never saw her again, which was fine. You got to take some of that when you're dealing with the general public, because you don't know what anybody's going through that day or whatever. But at the same time, people can be kind of nasty.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a whole podcast of the nastiness out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some funny stories.
For sure.
So, anything else you want? I mean, we're about 20 miles away from your first experience. I feel like you haven't set it up for people. Like, you don't really actually seem super excited about it. And I just want to say, I don't usually get the opportunity to bring people to these with me. I've taken my mom to one before, but I got a guest on this film, and it's a holiday, so you're not working, and I think I would have thought you'd have a little more enthusiasm for this.
Well, I apologize. I guess I am super excited to be seeing this super secret movie and this super special trade screening, which will, I said I'm excited for the theater to probably just be us.
We'll see. We'll come back after.
I'm curious how it could convey more excitement to you. This is how I talk, too.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the listeners will think you're more excited than
Probably not.
me.
Probably not.
All right, well, we'll come back after the film and the experience to get your impressions.
I look forward to it.
Now that it's a few weeks after the trade screening, I can reveal that the film that we saw was Mean Girls. You'll have to be the judge of whether you think Jigger's excitement level increased maybe a degree. I'm not really sure. I think he really wasn't super excited, but I'll let you be the judge.
It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor. And that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit threemagnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Cetera Advisor Networks are not affiliated. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
Okay, so it's a couple hours later, and we're on our way home from Jigger's first ever trade screening. So tell us all about it. Spare no details, because I'm sure it's going to really leave. I mean, I feel like people are left hanging from before.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. We were walked in and immediately greeted. There was a long list of names, and Lawren was frightened that there were going to be a ton of people there, and turns out she was the only one that had RSVP'd and guessed, which was me. So we made some small talk with our host for a little bit, and then we were ushered into theater number 2 to watch the film.
That's always where I go.
Which is apparently where Lawren always is. And, I was excited. There were no previews. We started to go right into the feature film. And about 30 seconds in, the whole screen went dark. And
that's never happened before.
So, she blamed me. Of course, I ruined something and messed something up. But it turned out that security had not shown up yet. So they had to confirm with the studio that it was okay to run the movie without security being there.
Yeah, I mean, they were really scared that we were going to do something, I guess.
I mean, did you write my name down as the guest?
I did write your name down as the guest.
You know, maybe they did some background check on me and found some shady things in my past.
Yeah, I mean, with a name like Jigger,
yeah,
no.
Can't be trusted. The response that the host got also kind of cracked me up, which was, "Are you sure they're not in the theater already?" Given that there was only 2 of us in the theater, I offered to be security.
I know, that would have been really fun. Sometimes, they do have like night vision goggles. I mean, they can get kind of serious about it.
Wish I had seen some night vision goggles.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint.
After that, we were treated to the film in its full capacity. No more hiccups or issues. It was enjoyable. Would I call it more special than a normal screening? It was special because I was with my wife, but yet there wasn't kind of the magic of having a crowd with you so much.
You have to picture that they're in the seats with you and they're laughing along with you. It's a skill you pick up over time.
Maybe I'll have the opportunity again, although since I messed this one up, I've probably been blacklisted for
this might be your only time.
Yeah. So, thanks, Lawren.
So there you have it. Episode number 2 is in the books, and I promise next time we'll be recording at my desk. So this time I wanted to share an item that is on my desk. This was made, I think it was in 2018, and it is a little crocheted popcorn, and so it's red and white sort of bag, fits in your hand, and inside are little kernels of popcorn that are also crocheted, and you can dump the little kernels out. So it's like a really good sort of stress reliever, fidgety type thing that I often find myself using. And what's special about it is it was made by members of RISE, which is a group locally here. It stands for Refugee and Immigrant Society of Entrepreneurs. And they obviously are recent immigrants. And at the time, a lot of them, were coming from Syria and East Asia. And so we sort of came up with this idea to create a project. We found these popcorns on Etsy and worked with them. And they made around, I think, 20 of them. And we sold them for a time. And I kept one for myself. And it's just got this really special story and another thing that I can look out at my desk and just think back on the years of Aperture and all the different things we've done over the years. Well, that's sharing from my desk, and I'll sign off until episode 3.